Cognitive development in infants is of increasing research interest to a global community of experts. As of the mid-1980s, with the results of the now classic Sally-Ann task,
this is Sally, and this is Anne.
It was believed that children develop theory of mind around the age of 4.
Where will Sally look for the marble?
That is, until the Onishi and Baillargeon study in 2005. It examined the perception of others in much younger infants.
They used looking time as a measure and asked whether 15-month-old infants could maybe have any understanding of others' beliefs. Looking time is basically when you look at how long babies look at an outcome that you show them. So you show them a little event, and then you show them an outcome that is either consistent with what they should expect or inconsistent. How long they look at something tells us about the expectations that they had about an event, and whether the outcome violated their expectations or was consistent with their expectations. And Onishi and Baillargeon were actually more or less, I think, the first people that used this looking time method to ask the question of, well, how much do infants really understand about people's minds? Babies were watching this on a little puppet stage in front of them. There's a person sitting there, and there's 2 boxes in front of them, and there's an object that the person puts in, say, the green box, and then the person disappears, and whilst the person has disappeared, this object moves from the green box to the yellow box. And then when the person comes back, the question is, well, infants presumably at this point are making a spontaneous prediction about where this person's going to look for their ball. Is it the green box or the yellow box? If they were reasoning in accord with a theory of mind, so if they knew the person had a false belief that the object was still in the green box, then when the person now reaches for the yellow box, the infants should be surprised. Whereas if the person reaches for the green box, the infants should not be surprised. And this is indeed what they find. So they find that infants look longer when the person reaches for the location where the object really is compared to the location where the person has left the object. So they interpret this that infants have an understanding that the person should search in the location which is consistent with their belief. Until this point, people thought that infants didn't even understand that people had minds, let alone that they could have a false belief about the world. This created a lot of excitement because this was a huge change to our understanding of theory of mind development. But there were also a lot of challenges. A lot of response papers were written trying to come up with alternative explanations for how infants could have solved this task that maybe had nothing to do with reasoning about other people's beliefs. One of the alternative explanations for the Onishi-Baillargeon task, or the findings, were that infants might have been reasoning about the other person's ignorance rather than the false belief that their person had. It was suggested that perhaps the reason why children were surprised when the person came back and searched in the correct place was because actually they thought the person was ignorant, and so the person should get it wrong.
In an effort to eliminate this possibility of ignorance in the Onishi and Baillargeon study, Dr. Victoria Southgate and her team conducted a new study with 24-month-old infants in 2007.
We asked whether infants would generate action predictions about where someone will look for an object that had been moved in their absence. We had a person sitting there were 2 boxes, and there was a little bear puppet that would come and put a ball in one of these boxes. And then the person turned around, so she couldn't see what was going to happen next. And then whilst the person turned around, the bear would take the ball away from the box and just take it away from the scene altogether. So in this case, the ball is not actually in either of the boxes, but the correct answer, nevertheless, if you reason that someone has a false belief, is to expect that she's going to search where she last saw the ball. And this addressed this question of ignorance versus false belief, because if you really are just thinking the person's going to get the wrong answer, then both of these boxes are empty, so both of them are wrong. But what we found was that actually when we looked at where their eyes went, so did they think she was going to open this window or this window, they specifically expected that the agent would go to the window that was above the box that she thought contained the ball. That study was actually also greeted with a lot of challenges and speculation by people that really just couldn't believe that children of this age would really have this, idea about other people having false beliefs. The problem is that in any particular study there are lots of alternative explanations. The challenge is whether you can generate an explanation that applies to lots of different tasks and can explain infants' behaviour across tasks. And so over the years now, people have come up with lots and lots of different false belief tasks that we can use with infants. And I think that despite the fact that there are various papers that come out which still question whether we are over-interpreting these data, whether there are much more low-level explanations for infants' success, I think the majority of the scientific community now think, yes, there's really something going on here. We have to take this data seriously.
Throughout the years, studies and tasks have revealed evidence of awareness of other people in infants as young as 6 months old. However, experts are a long way from reaching consensus on the interpretation of this data.
The assumption is that as adults, we have this conscious, explicit understanding of theory of mind. And infants, only pass these tasks because they have this implicit understanding of theory of mind. Actually, I think it's probably way more complex than that. It's a huge challenge for us to answer. I don't think that we have the evidence to say that infants operate with very distinct notions of theory of mind. I don't think we have evidence that shows that infants have a concept, say, of desire that is distinct from belief, or belief that is distinct from ignorance. My own view is that infants probably have some core concept such as thinks that encompasses all these things. Language probably plays an important role in actually developing more nuanced and discrete sort of theory of mind concepts like belief and desire and intention and goal, and that they start off with something very, very basic, but which allows them to generate very good predictions about what other people are going to do. So I think now the question is to understand how infants are doing this. So I think this is the challenge for the future. So which mechanisms are allowing them to do this, both at the cognitive level and at the neural level?